looking to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Vietnam. Hello, Charlene.
Hello, I'm Charlene Navaja, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines, the government of Vietnam gave top priority to ensuring security and safety for the lives and assets of its citizens in Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urges Israel to abandon its effort to maintain neutrality following Russia's invasion, saying the time had come for the Jewish state to firmly back his country.
Hundreds of Lismore citizens.
And after historic flooding that recently hit Australia, the residents of Lismore received much-needed aid from the Iglesia Ni Cristo.
Rescue missions by local authorities.
And travelers to Thailand will no longer have to take a COVID-19 test before boarding the plane under plans announced Friday as part of efforts to reboot the kingdom's pandemic-battered tourism sector.
First in our news, the party, the state, and the government of Vietnam gave top priority to ensuring security and safety for the lives and assets of its citizens in Ukraine. That according to the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Lee Tae-tung Hang, telling reporters on Thursday. Given the situation in Ukraine, the Prime Minister issued a public telegram on the protection of Vietnamese citizens and legal entities. Foreign Minister Bui Tan Son has held phone talks with his counterparts of Russia, Ukraine, and Romania, and sent a letter to the Foreign Minister of Poland and received the relevant countries' ambassadors to Vietnam, asking for their assistance in guaranteeing maximum security and safety for Vietnamese citizens and their families, and to create conditions for repatriation flights. Vietnamese ministries, sectors, and diplomatic missions in relevant countries have arranged repatriation flights to bring home about 1,400 Vietnamese people and their family members who wish to return to Vietnam. Meanwhile, more than a quarter of the population have now fled their homes in Ukraine due to Russia's devastating war, according to the UN refugee chief on Sunday. Among the responsibilities of those who wage war everywhere in the world is the suffering inflicted on civilians who are forced to flee their homes. That according to the UNHCR chief Filippo Grandi. The war in Ukraine, he said, is so devastating that 10 million have fled, either displaced inside the country or as refugees abroad. UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, said Sunday that 3,389,044 Ukrainians had left since the Russian invasion began on February 24, with another 60,352 joining the exodus in Saturday's update, a flow roughly the same as the day before. Some 90% of those who have fled are women and children. Ukrainian men aged 18 to 60 are eligible for military call-up and cannot leave. UNICEF, the UN Children's Agency, said more than 1.5 million children are among those who have fled abroad, warning that the risks they face of human trafficking and exploitation are real and growing. Meanwhile, Ukraine on Monday rejected an ultimatum to surrender the besieged city of Mariupol, according to its deputy prime minister, demanding Moscow instead allow hundreds of thousands of terrified residents safe passage out. Russia's Ministry of Defense had earlier said Ukraine had until 5 a.m. on March 21 to respond to Russian proposals, warning that more than a court-martial awaits those who do not surrender. Take a look.
Официальные власти Киева призываем к благоразумию и отмене ранее отданных указаний, которые обязывали боевиков пожертвовать собой и стать в кавычках мучениками Мариуполя. Кроме того, настаиваем на официальном письменном ответе украинской стороны до 5 утра завтра, то есть 21 марта, на все перечисленные чисто гуманные предложения Российской Федерации.
We can't talk about surrendering weapons. That, according to Irina Vereshchuk, telling Ukrainska Pravda hours before a Russian deadline. She said, we have already informed the Russian side about it. She said, demanding Moscow instead open humanitarian corridors to allow an estimated 350,000 people still trapped in the city to leave. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged Israel to abandon its effort to maintain neutrality following Russia's invasion, saying the time had come for the Jewish state to firmly back his country. Take a look.
Можна довго запитувати, чому ми не можемо отримати від вас зброю, або чому Ізраїль не ввів потужні санкції проти Росії, чому не тисне на російський бізнес, але відповідь все одно обирати вам, шановні брати і сестри. І вам з цією відповіддю потім жити, народи Ізраїлю. Українці зробили свій вибір. 80 років тому рятували євреїв, і тому серед нас є праведники народів світу, народи Ізраїлю. Тепер і у вас є такий вибір.
Zelensky, who is Jewish, made this appeal during an address to Israeli lawmakers, the latest in a series of speeches by video conferencing to foreign legislatures. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has walked a careful diplomatic line since Russia launched its invasion on Ukraine on February 24, stressing Israel's strong ties to Moscow and Kiev. Prime Minister Bennett has sought to reserve delicate security cooperation with Russia, which has troops in Syria across Israel's northern border. Prime Minister Bennett has held regular phone calls with Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin, including a 3-hour meeting with Putin at the Kremlin on March 5.
The soldier's face is caked in dust, which leaves only his blue eyes just about visible. But he is alive in the ruined aftermath of a Russian military strike on a barracks at Mykolaiv, which left dozens dead in the southern Ukrainian town. Moscow claimed it had struck a Ukrainian arms depot with hypersonic missiles in what would be the first use in combat of the next generation weapons. Ukraine called on China on Saturday to join the West in condemning Russian barbarism. With the invasion in its fourth week, Kiev's embattled leader Volodymyr Zelensky pressed for meaningful talks to halt fighting that has forced at least 3.3 million Ukrainians to flee their country. The plea for China to condemn the invasion came from a top Zelensky advisor, Mikhailo Podolyak. While Western countries have shown unity in the face of an invasion whose brutality has been clearly documented on social media, China has so far refused to condemn it. Russia's claim Saturday to have unleashed its new hypersonic Kinzhal missile would mark a dramatic new escalation of its campaign to force Ukraine to abandon hopes of closer ties with the West. Russian President Vladimir Putin, who unveiled the Kinzhal missile in 2018, has termed it an ideal weapon that flies at 10 times the speed of sound, making it extremely difficult for missile defenses to intercept. Residents of the northern Ukrainian town of Novorossiysk should seek shelter after an ammonia leak at a nearby chemical factory, an official said Monday, as intense fighting with Russian forces in the area continues. Sumy Regional Governor Dmytro Zivitsky said there had been an ammonia leakage at the Sumi Kim Prom facility, affecting an area within 2.5 kilometers, that's about 1.5 miles, of the plant, which produces fertilizers. The extent and cause of the incident was not immediately clear, but residents were told to seek refuge in basements or on lower levels of buildings to avoid exposure. Ammonia is lighter than air, therefore shelters, basements, and lower floors should be used for protection, Zivitsky said in a Telegram message. He added that emergency crews were at the scene and prevailing winds meant the nearby city of Sumi, with a pre-war population of around 250,000, was not under immediate threat. A convoy of 29 taxis and around 60 drivers arrived back in Madrid after driving to Warsaw and returning to Spain with Ukrainians displaced by the war. The Ukrainian embassy. Let's take a look.
No lloréis, por favor. No hacéis llorar a nadie. ¿Verdad? Si queréis decirme algo, decidme que me lo diga a través de aquí y yo lo entiendo perfectamente.
І знання англійської мови на рівні 3-го класу. Але якось виходить.
Encontrar el lenguaje incluso con el alma y con el cuerpo sin saber el idioma.
Muchas gracias.
UN Chief Antonio Guterres warned Monday that the world must act to prevent a hurricane of hunger and meltdown of the global food system following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Secretary General told reporters in New York that the war risks sparking far-reaching consequences for the global food supply that will have a devastating impact on the poorest. Let's take a look.
This war goes far beyond Ukraine. It is also an assault on the world's most vulnerable people and countries. While war reigns over Ukraine, a sword of Damocles hangs over the global economy, especially in the developing world. Food, fuel, and fertilizer prices are skyrocketing. Supply chains are being disrupted, and the costs and delays of transportation of imported goods, when available, are at record levels. And all of this is hitting the poorest, the hardest, and planting the seeds for political instability and unrest around the globe. 45 African and least developed countries import at least 1/3 of their wheat from Ukraine and Russia. 18 of those countries import at least 50%. This includes countries like Burkina Faso, Egypt, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. We must do everything possible to avert a hurricane of hunger and the meltdown of the global food system.
Russia and Ukraine represent more than half of the world's supply of sunflower oil and about 30% of the world's wheat. He added, noting that Ukraine alone provides more than half of the World Food Program's or WFP's wheat supply. As a direct response, he announced the establishment of a new UN Global Crisis Response Group on Food, Energy, and Finance, based at the Secretariat in New York, to be overseen by Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed. More than 3.2 million people have now fled Ukraine, and millions more are internally displaced. The military's FA-50 jet fighter pilots will train with their American counterparts flying F-16S, specifically on the suppression of enemy air defenses or SEAD exercises in the ongoing bilateral air contingent exchange. Philippine Air Force or PAF spokesperson Colonel Maynard Mariano said Sunday the training, which started on March 14 and will end on March 25, would involve 4 American F-16S and 4 PAF FA-50S on the neutralization of enemy anti-air assets and airfields. SEAD refers to operations conducted to neutralize enemy surface-based air defenses like anti-aircraft artillery or AAA and surface air missiles or SAM, and interrelated systems such as early warning, radar, and command control and communication. Mariano said the exercises would be held at the Pro Valley, formerly known as the Colonel Ernesto Rabina Air Base. He added that this year's exercises would feature subject matter expert exchange or SMEE on how to use and defend against SAM systems. The exercises are held at the Basa Air Base and Clark Air Base, both in Pampanga, Colonel Ernesto Ravina Air Base in Capas, Tarlac, and in Wallace Air Station in San Fernando, La Union. These exercises would focus on a wide range of mission sets, such as air-to-air engagement-based defense, air traffic navigations and integration coordination, air battle management, air defense command and control operations, radar and radio operations, and surface-to-air missile operation and deployment planning.
Meanwhile, more employment opportunities will soon be available to Filipino workers as the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, formally signed a labor cooperation agreement with the government of Yukon, Canada. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III and Minister Ranch Pillay inked the Memorandum of Understanding on the employment and protection of Filipino workers in a virtual ceremony last March 18. The Memorandum of Understanding that we are signing not only strengthens bilateral labor relations, but will also enhance cooperation in the protection, recruitment, and deployment of Filipino workers in Yukon, according to Bello in a statement on Sunday. The agreement aims to facilitate the deployment of Filipino workers under the Yukon Nominee Program, which is driven by employers looking to fill critical vacancies unoccupied by Canadians or permanent residents. The MOU will be implemented by the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration and Yukon's Department of Economic Development. The agreement provides that employers and their agents, including immigration consultants, are prohibited from charging any fees for recruitment services and selection. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Hoy, Mr. Pwede! Masama at bawal ang pag-inom! Diyan ka na naman sa kakabawal mo, Mr. Bawal eh. Napaka-KJ mo. Walang magandang dulot ang pag-inom. Lalo na't eleksyon ngayon. Bawal yan!
Ayon sa Omnibus Election Code, ang pagbibenta, pagbili o pag-inom ng alak sa araw ng eleksyon ay isang election offense.
Inggit ka lang! Oye, oye! Pakawalan niyo ako! Hindi na ako uulit! Hay nako! Nasa uli talaga ang pagsisisi. Don't drink and vote. Ako si Mr. Bawal na nagpapaalala na hindi na nga mabuti ang pag-inom ng alak, tapos sa eleksyon, gagawin mo pa? Bawal yan!
A public service message of Net25 for Mata ng Halalan 2022. Matatag, matapang, matapat.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Ilalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Welcome back. Travelers to Thailand will no longer have to take a COVID test before boarding the plane, under plans announced on Friday as part of efforts to reboot the kingdom's pandemic-battered tourism sector. From April 1, the requirement to take a negative test within 72 hours of travel will be scrapped, and instead, visitors will be tested on arrival in Thailand. According to Tawisin Visa Noyotin, spokesman for the country's COVID-19 task force. Draconian travel curbs help Thailand limit COVID case numbers and deaths in the early stages of the pandemic, but it hampered its crucial tourism industry, which accounts for about a fifth of the country's economy. Thailand is currently recording around 25,000 new cases of COVID a day as the Omicron variant spreads around the country. But officials hope this will tail off in time for them to move to a post-pandemic phase from July. Seeking to bounce back from its worst economic recovery or economic performance since the 1997 Asian financial crisis, Thailand has gradually eased travel restrictions over the past 9 months. And Hong Kong will resume international flights from 9 countries, including the U.S. and Britain in April, according to city leader Carrie Lam today. The United States, Britain, France, and Australia were among the 9 countries on the list. On Monday, Lam said starting April 1, Hong Kong will lift or remove flight bans known as a circuit breaker for these 9 countries. Lam's administration has been pummeled for its handling of the COVID crisis, for putting out unclear messages about proposed mass testing and lockdown measures. Fears of being caught in a sudden lockdown fueled panic, causing residents to strip supermarket shelves bare and led to a record-high exodus of both foreign and local residents. By mid-March, Hong Kong recorded a net outflow of more than 134,000 people leaving the city.
New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announces the early scrapping of strict border controls, which will first allow vaccinated Australian travelers before a broader relaxation to other international tourists. Ardern said that vaccinated Australians could visit without undergoing quarantine or self-isolation from April rather than the July date originally planned. Let's watch this.
Today I'm announcing the next stage in our border reopening work. Our border has already reopened to New Zealanders from around the world. And on Monday, critical and skilled workers also became eligible to enter without isolation to shore up our workforces in industries such as agriculture, technology and construction as our economy rebounds. And we have now received guidance that it is safe to significantly bring forward the next stage of border reopening work. We're ready to welcome the world back. And today I can confirm from 11:59 p.m. Tuesday, 12 April, vaccinated Australians can travel to New Zealand. And from 11:59 p.m. Sunday, the 1st of May, vaccinated travellers from visa waiver countries and those with valid visitor visas can travel to New Zealand. I'm proud that New Zealand is a country able in this moment in time to provide a safe place for our tourists to return to. And during my international engagements this year, I will be helping to lead the charge to accelerate the growth of our top export markets, our primary sector and our tourism sector, encouraging people to buy New Zealand made and also to come and see us for themselves.
Ardern said that vaccinated Australians could visit without undergoing quarantine or self-isolation from April rather than the July date originally planned. Travelers from nations that have visa-free arrangements with New Zealand, including major markets in the Northern Hemisphere, Japan, Singapore, Korea, and Taiwan, will be allowed to do the same from May 1st. Ardern described the change as a major boost for New Zealand's struggling tourism industry. The announcement did not cover arrivals from countries such as China and India, where visas are required to visit New Zealand, who must currently self-isolate for 10 days upon arrival. The requirement is not due to be dropped until October, but Ardern said that date was also likely to be moved forward. Foreign Minister Boy Tang Son and Malaysian counterpart Saifuddin Abdullah on Sunday discussed preparations for the official visit to Vietnam by Malaysian Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob from March 20 to 21. The pair also explored orientations of enhanced cooperation between the two foreign ministers and touched upon several regional and international issues of shared concerns. They agreed to work closely together and collaborate with relevant agencies of each country to continue effective implementation of the minutes of the 6th meeting of the Vietnam-Malaysia Joint Committee for Economic, Scientific, and Technological Cooperation in November last year, as well as the Action Program for Vietnam-Malaysia Strategic Partnership for the 2021 to 2025 period. In commemoration of the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, UN Chief Antonio Guterres said this year's theme, Voices for Action Against Racism, calls on us to listen closely, to speak out loudly, and act decisively. Let's watch this.
This year's theme, Voices for Action Against Racism, calls on us to listen closely, to speak out loudly, and act decisively. We all have a responsibility to engage in solidarity with movements for equality and human rights everywhere. And we must extend solidarity to everyone fleeing conflict or persecution without any discrimination based on race, religion, or ethnicity. We must speak out against hate speech, offline and online. And we must defend civic space by protecting free expression and assembly, the bedrock of pluralist, peaceful, and inclusive societies. We need a renewed social contract based on rights and opportunities for all to tackle poverty and exclusion, invest in education, and rebuild trust and social cohesion. And we must listen to those experiencing injustice and ensure their concerns and demands are at the center of efforts to dismantle discriminatory structures. Historical injustices manifest themselves in poverty, underdevelopment, marginalization, and social instability for entire communities and countries. It's time to recognize and repair long-standing wrongs.
International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination is on 21st of March. The 2022 edition of the International Day focuses on the theme Voices for Action Against Racism. This edition aims in particular at highlighting the importance of strengthening meaningful and safe public participation and representation in all areas of decision-making to prevent and combat racial discrimination, reaffirming the importance of full respect for the rights to freedom of expression and peaceful assembly, and of protecting civic space and recognizing the contribution of individuals and organizations that stand up against racial discrimination and the challenges they face. At least 2 people are dead and 26 others are missing after a ferry carrying dozens of migrants sank off the coast of Indonesia, an official said Sunday. The wooden fishing boat was carrying 89 on board when it departed for neighboring Malaysia through an unguarded route. But it sprung a leak soon after departing before being hit by strong waves and sinking. A man and a woman were found dead while 61 others were rescued and immediately transported to hospitals for treatment. The remaining passengers are still missing. Head of local search and rescue team Adi Pandawa said that passengers had come from across Indonesia and were seeking work in Malaysia without proper documentation. He said they suspect the number of passengers exceeded the boat capacity, so when the vessel was hit by strong waves, and it immediately sank. Relatively affluent Malaysia is home to millions of migrants from poorer parts of Asia, many of them undocumented, working in industries including construction and agriculture.
The United States has determined that the violence committed by the military in Myanmar against the Rohingya minority amounts to genocide and crimes against humanity, according to a U.S. official on Sunday. Hundreds of thousands of Rohingya Muslims have fled Buddhist-majority Myanmar since 2017 after a military crackdown that is now a subject of a genocide case at the UN highest court in The Hague. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is due to officially announce the determination in remarks during a visit today to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, where an exhibit titled Burma's Path to Genocide, using a former name for the country, is on display. Blinken said in December last year, during a visit to Malaysia, that the U.S. was looking very actively at whether the treatment of the Rohingya might constitute genocide. Around 850,000 Rohingya are languishing in camps in neighboring Bangladesh, while another 600,000 members of the community remain in Myanmar's southwestern Rakhine state. The news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Paano makakaboto yun? May kapansanan nga.
Paano naman sa mga no read, no write? Hindi pa rin pwedeng bumoto.
Pwedeng bumoto! Ang mga illiterate o ang mga hindi marunong magbasa o magsulat, maging ang mga PWD, may karapatan silang bumoto.
Paano?
Maaaring magdala ng mga kasama ang mga illiterate at PWD para maalalayan sila sa kanilang pagboto o sa mga pagkakataong kailangan nila ng tulong.
Kahit sino, pwede nilang isama?
No, dapat kamag-anak na kadugo ng botante ang kasama nila. Magdala lamang sila ng PWD ID. Ano bang kapansanan ng kakilala mo?
Ayun, nakahiga lang eh. Hindi makabangon. May sakit daw siyang love nut.
Hindi kapansanan yun. Alam ko na. Eto sa balutamol, balutromycin. Pakainin nyo para ganahan.
Para sa karagdagang kaalaman, makipag-ugnayan lang sa pinakamalapit na barangay o bisitahin ang COMELEC website.
A public service message of Net25 for Mata ng Halalan 2022. Matatag, matapang, matapat.
Sobrang lap trip.
Dali lang yan!
Dali mo, kakakain ko lang. Joke lang!
Makinig kasi sa sinabi ng magulang.
Mag-seatbelt ka kasi.
Oye, nakakahiya tuloy.
Ako na makulit ha.
Good girl na ako.
Sana all. At eto na ang bagong laro ngayong linggo, ang Sayang Tipik
5.
Laking problema yan.
Magko-cover ako ng kanta. Ayan. Magko-cover ako ng kanta. Na mag-cover.
Funniest Nakaball Videos.
After historic flooding that recently hit Australia, the residents of Lismore received their much-needed aid from the Iglesia ni Cristo. Here's Patricia Madroño from our Australia Bureau. Patricia.
In recent days, sudden and unprecedented superstorms rampaged across southeast Queensland. With very little warning, the city of Lismore was caught off guard. After several days of torrential rainfall, vulnerable areas in this rural city have been completely submerged, with water rising to record-breaking levels. Homes of hundreds of Lismore citizens, businesses, and other establishments were completely underwater. As the water recedes, it leaves behind millions of dollars of property damage. Rescue missions by local authorities, joined by concerned individuals and organizations, have been mobilized. After finding refuge at evacuation centers, Lismore citizens return to their homes. There, they are met with the heartbreaking sight of complete destruction. Piles of destroyed mattresses, household appliances, and furniture line the streets. Add to that, homeowners now face the additional risk of mold growth and asbestos exposure from collapsed structures. As the news of Lismore's tragic situation spread throughout the country, help came in droves. The Australian Defence Force and the Iglesia ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, are some of the organizations that have committed to assist in the repair of Lismore by sending manpower to aid in the city's cleanup needs. Other forms of relief such as food, clothes, medication, and school supplies have been sent as well. The city of Lismore remains in recovery, healing from the historic tragedy with the help of neighbors from across the nation. Patricia Madroño, Eagle News.
With elections set in Papua New Guinea in June, women are encouraged to run for office. Here's Echo Hortaleza Quinola of Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. Echo.
Here in Papua New Guinea, only 7 women have been elected in the national parliament in its 46 years of independence, urging the Social Democratic Party to endorse more female candidates in the coming election. 65 aspiring women leaders attended a 3-day workshop training themed Practice Parliament for Aspiring Women in preparation for contesting seats in the national election. National Capital District Honorable Governor Powes Parkop calls on women leaders of the country to be involved in and advocate gender equality in the nation. During the workshop, political levels and issues, sentiments, and other questions are raised and addressed.
A certain level of gender equality or bringing women into the balance, into the equation, has a consequential change in the social, economic, all the sectors. This is why we need this change. We need leadership that is both male and female, that is providing good, passionate, quality leadership for our country.
Dr. Alphonse Gelu speaks on good governance and parliamentary leadership, while Honorable Governor Powes Parkop discussed the role of government, opposition, and committees inside and outside Parliament.
That leadership is not only for men. Leadership is meant for both men and women. So democracy as a system, democracy as an ideology, basically gives equal opportunity. It gives equal opportunity to both men and women.
Women in Papua New Guinea are called upon today to brave the world of governance for a more progressive tomorrow. Echo Hortaleza Quinola, Eagle News.
The United Nations began a monitoring mission on the Great Barrier Reef Monday, assessing whether the World Heritage Site is being protected from climate change as it suffers further widespread bleaching. Higher than average temperatures have again caused severe bleaching in parts of the reef. Authorities confirmed last week, dashing hopes of a cooler La Nina summer could spare corals from another season of heat damage. UNESCO's mission will assess whether the Australian government is doing enough to address threats to the Great Barrier Reef, including climate change, before the World Heritage Committee considers listing it as in danger in June. Reef expert Scott Heron of James Cook University told AFP he hoped there is some transparency in the areas of the reef the UN team are visiting, including those affected by the current bleaching event. Since 2016, the Great Barrier Reef has been hit by 3 mass bleaching events, during which heat-stressed corals expel algae living in their tissues, draining them of their vibrant colors. A decision by the World Heritage Committee last July not to list the reef as endangered surprised many, given UNESCO had recommended the listing just weeks earlier.
A beach cleanup drive called Linis Muna Bago Itcha and fishing tournament was successfully organized by a Filipino community group called Pinoy Anglers Bahrain at the Nurana Island. The Pinoy Anglers Bahrain is recognized by the Philippine Embassy there. Here's Clem Orhaliza from our Bahrain Bureau. Clem.
We are here right now in Nurana Island, where anglers from all over Bahrain have gathered for the Linis Muna Bago Itcha cleanup drive program, where they simultaneously aim to clean up the beach and hold a fishing competition.
The PAB, or Pinoy Anglers in Bahrain, has launched the cleanup drive program promoting the cleanliness and the health of the environment over at Nurana Island, where it is a very popular fishing spot among the locals. Fishermen from all over Bahrain, including different groups, have all joined in to pick up some trash from the shoreline.
Ang aim ng event na ginawa namin ngayon, bali linis muna bago itsa 9th season, makatulong sa kalinisan ng dagat ba, sa mga cleanliness.
Para maingganyo din yung ibang anglers na maging malinis din sa dagat.
Kumbaga maging responsible na lang din sa kalinisan, hindi yung puro itsa lang. At least may tulong man lang din kami sa dagat. May maibalik kami sa biyayang natatanggap namin.
Ang pub nag-umpisa sa iilan members lang. Ngayon umuwi na kasi yung pinaka-founder, si Mr. Joe Matias. Ito nga pala si Mr. Fredo, yung kasama sa founder ng pub na nagbuo. Sila talaga mga original niyan. Hanggang sa dumami dahil sa samahan, sa banding, para sa mga distressed OFW na gustong tumambay din sa tabing dagat. At the same time, nag-enjoy tuwing weekend after work.
Para mabawasan yung stress ng mga OFW na hindi yung puro trabaho na lang, at least once a week, meron kami libangan, magkasama-sama kami banding.
Aim din ng grupo na to na pagkaisahin yung lahat ng may mga small group kasi ng anglers sa Bahrain. Bali yung pub, yung parang umbrella siya, parang mother group para pag-isahin. Isa lang naman yung aim ng anglers manghuli ng isa at mag-enjoy.
Tips para sa mga bagong anglers. Karamihan kasi nahihiya lumapit sa amin. Pero approachable lahat ng grupo, lalo na member ng mga pub at sa ibang mga fishing group. So nandito kami para hindi naman kami ganun ka-master, pero at least may alam kahit paano, mai-guide namin sila sa tamang setup na gagamitin. Para hindi rin masayang yung pera na bibilhin. Tamang gamit lang din. Pwede nyo i-follow yung namin, Facebook page namin, Pinoy Anglers Bahrain. At saka sa Instagram, ganun din, Pinoy Anglers Bahrain.
Pwede mag-message doon.
Pwede mag-message. Approachable yun. Anytime yun, magre-reply agad ng mga admins doon.
Saka sa mga baguhan, huwag kayo mahiya magtanong sa mga, hindi naman natin masasabing master talaga. Yung kahit paano may alam na konti. Bago ka sumabak, kumbaga sa gera nga, kailangan handa ka muna bago ka sumabak sa gera.
Kung kaya ng bulsa lang, importante nag-i-enjoy.
Yes. As a beginner, yung may advice namin sa kanila, wag na munang gumasa sa mga kung ano. At least pag-aralan muna nila dapat yung setup na dapat gamitin. At kung wag na munang sumabay sa uso ba. Kailangan magsimula ka sa maliit muna eh. Kumbaga, bago ka pumunta sa magagandang setup, umpisa mo muna sa yung affordable sa mo muna.
Fishing is a wonderful pastime, and anglers here in Bahrain are trying to do their best to take care of the environment and seas that are habitat of the fish. Reporting from Bahrain, this is Clem Orhaliza for Eagle News International.
Thank you very much, Shirlene. Shirlene, I heard you're coming home soon.
Yes, that's right, Alma. On Thursday, I'll be flying back to Philippines.
Oh, Thursday. Okay. Have a safe flight back here, and hoping to see you soon.
Thank you so much, Alma. And yes, before I go, on behalf of all the correspondents of ASEAN Bureau, we would like to greet Ms. Weng Demoy, the president of EBC. Happy belated birthday. Hope you had a blast. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. Thank you for joining us today here in ASEAN Focus. This is Charlene Navaja from your EBC Vietnam Bureau. We live in interesting times.
Thank you very much, Shirlene, and happy birthday to our President, Weng de la Fuente de Imoy. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay informed and stay in the news because we live in interesting times. Good night.